What's up, everybody? Betting Recap Podcast. We're going to call this something eventually, but for now, it's just a Jiu-Jitsu Mag betting podcast. What's up, Jim? How's your weekend?
Oh, man, had a lovely weekend. Got to go to Carmel by the Sea for a little sabbatical, just to drive the beach.
That's rich people stuff.
That is rich people stuff. I just want to see how the upper class is living. And in doing so, there was a Who's Number One?
Yep.
And there was a UFC.
Yep.
In which I was on the road. So give us an update. What happened?
I got to carry this one. So Who's Number One? Let's start with Who's Number One, right? Let's talk about some of the betting lines there and some of the action there, and then we'll talk about UFC and some of my bets there. Eventually, me and Jim may do a pre-event podcast talking about my actual bets and maybe if you'd like to tail them or follow them, we'll see. All right, I'm not the most comfortable doing that because I don't want people to lose money if I'm wrong, right? So the thing you'll know is that if I suggest something and you lose, don't blame me, but we're going down together because I placed the bet. I placed every bet that I recommend. All right. Anyway, had a good weekend. All right, very good weekend. Who's Number One had some issues in the beginning of the week. So on Monday, Seth Daniels messages me and he's like, "Fuck. This event's fucked."
We talked about this.
A lot of issues. We talked about it, right? So, anyway, it turned out good because they ended up bringing in replacements. And let me pull up our betting analysis article. The fight. No, this is not. This is Who's Number One. So let me pull up our article, and then we'll go from there. So let's start from the first match that we wrote about here, which is Elizabeth Clay and Maggie Grandotti. I set the opening here at minus 300, so giving Elizabeth a 75% implied probability to win. She ends up winning by submission, Gogo Plata, in regulation. I think Maggie did a good job, but Elizabeth right now she's just on fire, and minus 300 was probably she probably should have been a little bit a bigger favorite, and the betting lines reflected that. So I bet Elizabeth Clay at about minus 400. I just put one unit on it, and it's not the greatest bet because she is such a big favorite. But I was just very confident that she was going to win, and she did. So good for her. She wins. Again, the odds are juiced, right? So she minus 400. She ended up closing at like minus 700. So you got to be careful betting people that are really giant favorites because if she's at minus 700, right, you understand how odds work, right, Jim?
Yeah.
For every $700 you place, you get 100.
You get 100, right?
What does that mean? Let's say I place 7 of these bets, right? If one loses, am I a winner or a loser?
You're a loser.
Exactly. So that's why you got to be careful. You can't just say, okay, well, she's gonna win. I'm gonna place a bet. It doesn't matter if she's going to win this time. She may win this time, but she has to win 7 times in a row for it to be a good bet if she's at minus 700. So that's that. Okay. Elizabeth wins. That was the first match of the evening. Second match was between Lucas Barboza and Cyborg.
The Hulk versus Cyborg.
Yeah. 2 people who are both physical specimens, and their names reflect that.
Yeah.
And so this was the match where Cyborg had to step in for Craig Jones because Craig was out with COVID. So Cyborg has actually beaten Hulk twice, right? But this is different. This is fight to win rules, very different. But Cyborg wins again. Judge's decision. It was a pretty clear judge's decision in my opinion. He just looked more dominant, and some of that may have had to do with the fact that he's just bigger, and he may have Hulk's number. He's just a little bigger than Hulk, and they kind of have the same style, so that weight might play a factor. Anyway, the lines didn't change much in this fight. Cyborg started out at around minus 130, and Hulk started out at around like plus 110, something in that range. And I didn't I did not bet this fight. I didn't recommend to bet this fight just because they're too evenly matched. Usually you want. Would you say that Cyborg has a better than 50-ish% chance of winning, Jim?
Yes.
You would? What percentage would you give Cyborg?
Oh, well, I mean, let me see. Your odds were you had Cyborg at
56%.
Yeah, at 50 or 6%, and that sounds about
Okay.
right. But considering he was a last minute replacement, maybe 49.
Yeah, that was the
48.
problem. The problem is that he was a last minute replacement. I didn't know what kind of shape he's in. So if you were to have bet Cyborg in this match, right, you would have to say that he would have to have a greater than, I would say, at least 60 to 70% chance of winning.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, why wouldn't you place that bet? It's because there's no value.
And you look at Cyborg's body of work in competition as well.
Yeah.
All it takes, I mean, it seems so, it might be oversimplified, but all it takes for someone like Cyborg is that he's in shape.
Yeah.
And he was, right?
Yeah, and betting on sports is not about who you believe is going to win. It's about where the value is in the long run. So let's just say I believe Cyborg was going to win, right? I did. I picked him to win, but his odds were right there. His odds were right at what I believe they should be. So there's no value. So when I make a bet like this, when you make a bet like that, you are basically now really gambling.
So you had him at minus 125
Yes.
Versus Lucas's minus 105. Would you still categorize that as a pick'em type of margin?
Pretty much.
Okay.
Cyborg is a small favorite, very, very small favorite, but it's pretty much pick'em. I mean, lines move throughout the day, so there was probably a time where Cyborg was a little closer to even, and then Hulk was a little more in the minus. But either way, look, if you knew in your head, again, betting is individual, right? It's not betting is not like it's every person has their own opinion. Like before the fight happens, we don't know what's going to happen, right? So if in your head you're thinking, okay, I know Cyborg probably has a 75% chance of winning. If you believe that, you should place a bet, right? You should. Now, were you right? Well, yeah, you would have been right, but let's say Cyborg and Hulk face 10 times, right? You'd have to say out of 10 times, Cyborg has to win more than 7. He has to win 8 out of 10. Do you think so? If you think so, okay, place the bet because you have a lot of value on the table, right? And that's how you bet. That's how you win in the long term.
So yeah, I mean, using the term loosely, would this be your rule? The rule of 10. Out of the 10 times, what do you think? And this is the person who's placing the bet.
Depends.
What
It
do
could be
you
100.
think? It could be 100.
It doesn't really matter. It's just out of a big, you can't just think about it one time. Even though the match only does happen once, you're not thinking that these guys are going to face each other 10 times. You're thinking that if they were to face 10 times,
right,
would this person win 8 times? If that's the case, then yeah, his true probability should be 75%. If that's the case, and I see him at a 56% implied or minus 125, then I should place the bet every single time. Because if you're right, in the long run, you're going to win a lot of money because you're going to have that edge over the books, right? That's how betting works. And I really hope that, if we can educate people on betting in a smart manner, we will not have any issues with just people losing money. Because if you just use statistics and numbers and good judgment, you should come out on top. All right, Wagner versus Ronaldo Jr. This was the match that Gordon Ryan had to step out of because of COVID. Him and Craig got COVID together, and Ronaldo ends up facing Wagner, which I thought was a much better matchup, for Ronaldo. I mean, let's be honest. Ronaldo is not
seasoned.
He's not on the level of Gordon, right? I think that's fair to say. Let's just
who is at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful of people who might be, right? Buchecha, Victor Hugo, and Craig. That's there's a little short
all
list.
Big guys.
All big guys. Yeah, I mean
technical and big. Yeah.
I mean, who is the last person that beat Gordon? I mean, Felipe Pena probably, or Vinny.
Well, sort of. That was weird.
Yeah. So anyway, point is, Ronaldo was a big underdog initially against Gordon, but in this match he was a small underdog, and the reason is just because Wagner he's just a beast, and he's a no-gi specialist.
Body of work too.
Yeah. Wagner is somewhat of a, I don't know how to describe Wagner, but he's
blue
to
collar.
me, yeah, he's a blue collar. There's stories of him like working, I don't know where I heard this, but like working full day construction job and then going to the gym and whooping everybody. This is blue collar 101.
Yeah.
So anyway, Wagner, the reason I respect Wagner a lot is because he just seems to be the most complete grappler. Like, he's not a guy who relies on a specific trick to beat you. Like, he doesn't, do anything that's like you can. That's Wagner's thing. Maybe the hand to the mouth thing, but that's not really. That's more of a gimmick.
That was playful.
Yeah.
At that time.
So anyway, Wagner wins by judge's decision. I had predicted Wagner to win by judge's decision. I did place a bet on Wagner at BetDSI because the BetDSI odds were somehow minus 143, which, if I give Wagner a 56% or minus 185 implied probability to win, and BetDSI is 143, what I just described in the previous match applies, right? There's tremendous value there. So I want a unit on Wagner. It won. And honestly, I believe he won easily, just, based on how the trajectory of the match went. But the people have said that, Ronaldo's guillotines may have counted for more. I don't know. I'm not a judge. I just think that it looked like Wagner was out there having fun. And to me, it looked like he was the winner. That's all I'll say about that. And so anyway, he wins, and Ronaldo will still face Gordon in a future Who's Number One event, I believe. So, yeah, that's that. By the way, quick side note, I think everybody who has been sports betting on grappling at BetDSI is now banned from doing parlays because it's just, parlays – You kind of win a lot when you do a parlay, especially when you have a lot of knowledge.
Especially in this sector of grappling.
So I think maybe we abused the parlays a little bit too much. Like that one week where it was like Victor Hugo and like the 2 weeks ago 147, right? I parlayed everybody. I did every type of like parlay-ish bet you could do, like for max bets, because I just kind of knew these guys were going to win. And BetDSI probably was not very happy about that, and it's all good. It's all good. I'm not trying to win a ton of money. I'm really trying to grow the sport. So if no parlays, so be it. All good. Okay. So yeah, Wagner wins next, and the main event. So the old main event was supposed to be Ronaldo and Gordon, but new main event for Fight to Win, which was last Friday,
was the former co-main event, right?
It was the co-main event. Yeah. So now Gary Tonin versus Dante Leone. This is a good match. Probably one of the best matches I've ever seen, to be honest. It was just a back-and-forth match. And, I'm going to be honest, Gary led the show. He was the one to initiate all of the action. Dante did a great job defending. He obviously, has worked on his leg lock defense. And but, at the end of the day, I predicted Gary to win by submission, but he ended up winning by judge's decision. He was pretty close on a couple submissions, I think. But, Dante is very, very tough. And Dante has definitely improved. So I expect Dante to be a favorite in his next match, as long as it's not against, Gary or Gordon or Craig. It just depends on who he faces. But in most matches, Dante depends on who he faces. But I would say most of the people he faces in his weight class, he should be the favorite. So Gary gets the decision. I did bet. I max betted Gary, of course. His odds, I set them at minus 285, but when I had checked the odds, they were already at minus 400. So, and I think Gary closed at like minus 800 or something.
Oh, wow.
So I mean, yeah. I mean, this is even at minus 400. I think there was a little bit of value on Gary. So if you have the bankroll and you can, just take the risk, I would say that Gary, there's still some value on Gary, right? And yeah, I have to make this very clear for people that are listening to the podcast. I set the initial lines based off of many things, right? I have to also attract action. So when I set, I can't set Gary at minus 800 off opener, right? The reason is because if you do that, who is going to bet Gary now? Nobody, right? So if they naturally go there, then it is what it is. You know, we'll tighten them up eventually. But when I set the line, you have to kind of read my my write-ups and kind of come to your own conclusions, extrapolate your own conclusions, right? I can't tell you exactly what to do, but I also can't, say I'm also marketing the event, right? So I can't say like, okay, Dante has no shot. First of all, that's not true. I don't believe that. And secondly, even if he didn't have a shot, even if it was me versus Gary, I still have to market the event. I still have to set the line so that it's still attractive to bet. Does that make sense, Jim?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So even though Gary closed at minus 800, I wouldn't bet Gary at minus 800 because who knows? He could fall off the stage. He could, there's all kinds. Dante could catch him with some crazy stuff. Gary's been wrist locked before. You don't know what's going to happen. So people that are actually listening to the podcast and sports betting, I don't know how else to emphasize this point, but you need to do your own research and come to your own conclusions and find your own way. If you just listen to me and whatnot, there's a lot of nuances, a lot of things in between the lines that you may not get. So I just want to really hammer that home. All right, Gary wins. I had a really good weekend betting. Right, if the limits were big, I would be pretty well off. But the limits are small. So I bet Clay, I bet Wagner, and then I bet Gary. So those are the three people I bet. I almost bet Cyborg also, but I just Hulk.
It was too close for you.
Yeah, it's too much of an even match.
But that being said, all your favorites came through.
Oh yeah, I mean thank you, Jim. I appreciate I was pretty confident, in the favorites, with the exception of Cyborg because that was going to be a close match. But the other, and also Ronaldo, I thought had a chance too. Mm-hmm. But Gary and Elizabeth, I thought were they were pretty cemented. All right.
Although I did see the Ronaldo and Rocha match. I did see that one. That was really good. It was fun.
Hey, Ronaldo had a couple guillotines.
In fact, and based off their judging system, one could argue that he was actually ahead. It was a split decision.
You could, yeah.
And that was a fun match.
Yeah, I think you could if you bet Ronaldo and lost, you could make an argument. I think
it just sucks because your wallet's lighter, but
yeah.
you couldn't have
do?
that argument.
But you could make the argument. All right, so let's move over to UFC.
What happened over the weekend?
I think what we're going to do, Jim, is we're going to start talking a little more about UFC betting too, because
I could dig it.
We UFC is the much bigger sport, and
especially love talking about when the grappling.
We only talk about the grappling. We only talk about bets and grappling. If there's no bets and no grappling, I don't care. All right, so again, I said earlier in the podcast, we may start doing a pre-show and talk about my actual bets, but it is what it is. I don't like to do that. I want people to come to their own conclusions based off of information, not off of, I'd rather not give you the fish. I want you to fish. So, first match, this is a very important lesson here. Cody Durden versus Chris Gutierrez. So the lesson is this. Let me set up the frame here. Cody Durden came into this match, I think, just on like 2 weeks' notice. He's making his UFC debut. He's a very tough guy. He comes out against Gutierrez and wins the first round 10-8. Okay, he took his back, body triangle. Gutierrez didn't do shit. He just, it's a 10-8 round. If I take your back and body triangle you and I'm punching you in the face even lightly and you're just sitting there taking it, it's a 10-8 round. So whenever you see a 10-8 round and you can live bet, so UFC you can bet live. I mean, you can sit in front of your computer and you can click buttons and you can bet on the fight live. Whenever a fighter has a 10-8 round, all right, especially a guy who is like making his UFC debut, if the other guy has any kind of skill or any kind of ability to come back, you got to bet the draw immediately. So at the end of round 1, I tried to bet the draw. You know what the odds were for the draw in this matchup?
Negative.
Plus 5,000. Plus 5,000.
Oh, wow.
So meaning $1 gets you $500. So I could have bet $100. I would have had $5,000. So anyway, point is, you gotta bet the draw if you're live betting, and the first round somebody goes 10-8. Why? Because if the other guy comes back and wins 2 rounds, it's an automatic draw. It just has to be, right? A lot of people made a lot of money on that draw. So that's just a tip for people who bet UFC that are betting live. Bet that draw if the first round goes 10-8.
Yeah, we've seen that quite a few times as well.
Yeah. Draws are very rare. But in Nevada, the best judges are in Nevada, by the way. The best judges. Why? They've been doing it the longest. It just is what it is. All right. So I tried. I really tried to bet that draw. It didn't happen. Let me see. What bets did I have? I had a little bit of money on Johnny Munoz. He lost. It was a bad bet. I just, Munoz just ran out of steam. I had 0.5 units, so I lost $50. The next fight I had a bet on was Frankie Saenz. He lost another $50, 0.5 units. I actually was able to live bet Martinez big. So, after round 1, Saenz was just getting his ass kicked, and I was like, okay, I got to hedge. Hedge meaning I got to bet the other way to either ensure a profit or to cover my losses, right? So hedge Jonathan Martinez 2 units after round, I think, 1. So I ended up making a little bit of money on that fight just because the hedge was much greater than the original bet. The next fight, see, this is why I don't like to put my picks out, right? Because a lot of it, you need live betting to hedge to make sure that you don't lose. So I also bet Lando Venata. Lando lost. He lost. But Bobby Green, I hedged 2 units Bobby Green. I bet 1 unit Lando, but I bet Bobby Green 2 units live. So ended up making a little bit of money, like maybe half a unit. So again, that's why I always say you can't take people's advice and just like robotically do it. You need to be able to change things up. You got to be able to do it yourself. Otherwise, you're going to lose. Okay, I'm telling you. So the next fight, I did end up picking a pre-fight winner and betting on. I went 2 units, Vicente Luque. I was a little bit scared because Randy Brown, a lot of people bet Randy Brown. Randy Brown's the guy that he beat Mickey. We're friends with Mickey Gall. He beat Mickey in his second or third fight, I think. And, he's good. I was very scared of Randy Brown. But Luque, you just can't. What I learned about this UFC is that bet on the fighters that come from the best camps. Hard Knocks 365. That's the Black Zillions.
Yes,
they're now called Sanford MMA, and all the fighters that came out of that camp, that are coming out of that camp are crushing. Luque, Gilbert Burns. There was some other fighters from this card. Brunson. I mean, these are all Sanford MMA fighters. So anyway, 2 units on Luque. Cash there, and then I had 1 unit on Jennifer Maia, who also won. She had armbar. Actually, this is a good thing to talk about, grappling. So I didn't know this, but Jennifer Maia, not related to Damian Maia, but she gets armbar finish in round 1. That's very rare. Armbar from the bottom, close guard, armbar, rare. She beats Joanne Calderwood, and it was a pretty easy bet, when she hit the ground, I was like, oh, God, this bet's done. But then she hits the armbar and wins, and
armbar making a comeback in UFC submissions 2 weekends in a row with Fabricio. And
Fabricio that was a dominant position armbar. He went to the back, Kimura trap, and then armbar. This was like out of position on the bottom. The only other time I saw this recently was Roosevelt Roberts getting caught by Jim Miller. Same thing, bottom armbar. All right, so Jennifer Maia was a pretty decent underdog. She was like plus 150.
Real quick, how did Rose Namajunas just win? Is that armbar?
No, you talking about against Andrade?
Yeah,
she just boxed her up 3-round decision.
Oh, decision. Okay.
Yeah. You're thinking she likes to go for those Kimuras, yeah, but no, she didn't. It was a 3-round.
All right.
So Jennifer Maia was I didn't go with like what the odds actually were. So Maia was a small underdog. Luque was a pretty big favorite. Venata was a underdog. Sainz was an underdog. Munoz was an underdog. And Durden was an underdog. So, all right. Now, we should talk about the main event, even though I didn't have any action on it. But sadly, Edmund Shahbazyan, who we know, trains at Muscle Farm. We used to see him there all the time. His trainer is Jason Manley, who we know. Just sad, he it is what it is, right? He maybe got somebody who he just wasn't quite ready for, or he just didn't have a great day. Brunson is I would hate to fight a guy like Brunson, man.
Yeah, right now it looks like he's turning the page. He's turning the corner on a different phase of his career. He fought in a way that was very
smart.
Cerebral.
Very smart. He absorbed all of Edmund's power. Did you see the fight, Jim?
I did see that one.
He absorbed all of Edmund's power shots, and then he just TKO'd him. Really, at the end of round 2, it looked bad, and then Herb Dean stepped in right away.
And he didn't get overly emotional when he did get clipped. He stayed disciplined. He got clipped a couple times.
Yeah, he almost got KO'd.
Yeah.
There was a couple times where I was like, oh, that's it. Brunson's done.
But he stayed in the pocket and stayed very disciplined in his approach. And, wow, those are the worst kind of fighters to fight when they're so disciplined. And it's winning, and it's working.
Yeah, you shouldn't have – this is one of my flaws is you shouldn't have emotional attachments to fighters, right? And I'm just going to be very honest here. I should have bet Brunson. But I wasn't going to bet against Edmund and Manley, so that just wasn't going to happen. But Brunson, why? Because Brunson was just – we can't take all emotion and attachments and friends out of it. You cannot have Brunson at plus 330. That's just insane. Like, I don't – Brunson was a D2, Division II All-American, which means in Division II he was like top 8, in the nation, right? You know who else is D2 All-American?
Isn't Justin Gaethje?
I'm not sure.
No, he could be D1.
Kamaru Usman is a 3-time D2 All-American and a D2 national champion. Derek Brunson is a 3-time D2 All-American. He didn't win the national championship, but think about the caliber of wrestler he is. Edmund.
Well, hell, even John Jones is a JUCO All-American.
Yeah.
Which is junior college.
Just the term All-American, I think, is very hard to
on
get.
A collegiate level, yeah.
Edmund has good wrestling, has good jiu-jitsu, but we're just talking about a different caliber here. Like Edmund, I think, wrestled in high school, and it was an off night for him. He'll be back, no big deal. Just a small bump in the road, but hats off to Brunson. Congrats on the people that bet on Brunson. You made a lot of money, especially if you bet Brunson round 3 finish plus 3,300. So, $100 to get you $3,300.
Wow,
that's quite a win there for whoever bet that. So that's it. Let's look into next week real quick. No fight to win next week. I just got word from Seth that. Non-COVID related, but he's not having an event. I think they just had trouble kind of with the turnaround. It was just too quick of a turnaround this week, and they probably didn't get the people on the card that they needed to. So no big deal. Next week should be a stack card at Fight to Win. Tonight, Jim, we got a couple betting opportunities still for this week. Tonight we have Dana White's Contender Series. I don't bet Contender Series because it's just too volatile. The reason I don't like to bet these things is because everybody on there is not the highest level fighter, and they're fighting for a chance to be in the UFC. So you can expect crazy shit to happen. Some people just throw the game plan out the window and then just try to KO their opponent
or freeze under the lights.
You never know what's gonna happen. So I avoid Contender Series unless somebody on there that I know personally that I know is gonna destroy their competition. It's very rare. So anyway, no bets for me on Contender Series. Bellator is Friday, so no Fight to Win, but Bellator is now Friday. Pretty good card for just watching. I have a 1-unit bet on Michael Chandler, but I got Chandler at minus 200. No, I have a 2-unit bet on Michael Chandler. So I got Michael Chandler at minus 200. He's facing Ben Henderson. I just think Chandler's a just a better fighter at this point. Henderson is older, and weathered at this point, and I think Chandler should take it pretty easily here. I considered betting Matt Mitrione, but I cannot trust this guy. I don't want his mouthpiece to fall out of his mouth again. His last fight was super strange, but he should have the power to KO Timothy Johnson. Might bet the under there. I would avoid Miles Jury and Karakanyan. I don't think Karakanyan should be that big of an underdog, but I'm just going to avoid that fight. And then the last fight that, at this point you can't bet him, but Curtis Millender against Saba Homasi. Millender is minus 350 already, so you can't bet Millender at this point. But this is a terrible matchup for Homasi. Homasi is the type of guy who, for whatever reason, he thinks he can just stand and bang with certain people that he's outmatched against. And he's the type of guy who's going to strike with Curtis, and Curtis is probably going to KO him. I know Curtis. I think Curtis is one of the most brilliant strikers in the game. You do not want to strike with this guy. I've seen him in training KO guys with just tapping them. You do not want to strike with this guy. And he's been doing jiu-jitsu competitions. I faced him at one of the jiu-jitsu competitions last year. He's got a nasty darce. So he's just, I mean, if you want to bet Curtis with juiced odds, go ahead. But I'm staying clear of this fight. All right, and then lastly, UFC. So,
well, on the side note on the Bellator, before we leave, friend of the family, AJ Agazarm is returning.
He's on the card?
Yeah, he's on the prelim card.
So
as well.
he's on the prelim. Okay, so no betting, but I would assume AJ is probably a good. If there were lines, AJ would probably be a gigantic favorite. Who's he facing?
No, he's fighting Chris. What is that? Chris Leone. Don't know.
Never heard of him. Okay.
6-2 against Agazarm's 3-1. So
okay.
There you go.
Well, all right. Most likely you won't have any betting lines there. It's just too buried in the undercard. All right. UFC. So this Saturday, August 8th, is another UFC on ESPN. There'll be plenty of betting opportunities there. But let me just go over my bets and ideas. So Lewis versus Olynyk. You know these guys, right?
Yes, sir.
Alexei Olynyk, the Ezekiel master, and then Derek Lewis. My balls are too hot. Whatever his saying.
My balls is hot.
Yeah. So, all right. Let's start from the bottom. I have a small bet. Not a small bet. I have 2 units on Irwin Rivera. He is the first fight of the card. He really impressed me in his last fight. So I do have a bet on him, Irwin Rivera. I also have a 1 unit bet, 1.3 unit bet on Gavin Tucker. Gavin Tucker, Renzo Gracie black belt. I thought he was, he was like minus 220 opening, and now he's at minus 135. So I might actually add a little bit to Gavin Tucker. I like Gavin. I think he's a tough guy. I think if he doesn't get KO'd, he should win in an easy decision. But Janes is a hard hitter. You got to be careful. I might have to hedge a little bit on Janes by KO or Janes inside the distance. That's one way you can kind of make your bet a little safer. So if you're betting a favorite, and then let's say, I'll just break this down fully. Let's say I bet Gavin Tucker 1.3 units, right, at minus 141, I think I did. Now, if there's a proposition bet that his opponent, Justin Janes, by KO is like plus 400, right? You just put a little money on Justin Janes by KO because this guy's coming to swing. Then you cover your bet, meaning that if Janes wins by KO, hopefully he does, then you don't lose any money, right? At least, or maybe you even come out a little ahead. Depends on how you do this. So that's just one way to hedge, right? To ensure profit or to at least have a little safety, right? Because if I don't hedge Tucker and Janes comes out and KOs him in round 3, you lose not only your bet, but you lose, you could have hedged and you didn't. So you got to make these decisions. All right, Turman. I have a 1.5 unit bet on Wellington Turman against Andrew Sanchez. I think Turman is just, he's rising star. I think he's gonna do a lot coming up. And Sanchez, I think, is a good wrestler, but Turman, I think, is just on another level completely. All right. I think that's it for me as far. Oh no, I have a
prelims.
Yeah, that's prelims. There's many other fights. I like Kevin Holland, but he's juiced minus 380. You can't bet Kevin Holland at minus 380. Let me see. No other. Oh, I have a small bet, 0.5 units on Julia Stoliarenko. I think she has a chance to beat Yana Kunitskaya. I just think that she's tough. She has a lot of armbar finishes. Yana is weak against jiu-jitsu. And
what about Benilderius versus Scott Holtzman?
I'm avoiding that fight. I think Benny is the much better fighter overall, but Holtzman has X factors that you don't want to mess with, like cardio, like toughness, like grittiness. These are things that you don't want to bet Benilderius at minus 180 if you think that Holtzman has these X factors, and you don't want to bet Holtzman at plus 138 if if you're just banking on his cardio and his heart. He's got you can't be outgunned in every aspect. I mean, he really is. He's outgunned in striking, jiu-jitsu for sure. Maybe he's a better wrestler, but you're going wrestling against jiu-jitsu here. I just don't see. I mean, he could win. He could win and look dominant, but I just think that Dariush is the better technical fighter. Yeah, he's just the more skilled fighter, and there's a reason why he's minus 180. All right. I have a small bet, 1 unit bet on Darren Stewart at minus 120. He is now at minus 190. So I'm actually going to hedge and guarantee a profit by betting his opponent, Pitolo, who is right now at plus 165. So that's one other thing you can do. If you bet somebody and the odds change so much that you can just throw in an easy hedge and guarantee a profit, always guarantee the profit. Because you never you want the for sure thing over the maybe thing, So every time I could have hedged and I didn't hedge, I always regretted it. So that's always hedge.
All right.
We should talk about the co-main and the main.
The return of Chris Weidman.
So Weidman, I'm avoiding like the plague. I think Weidman can win easy here if he doesn't get touched. But Weidman's chin right now is a big concern. He only faces the best guys in the world, but Akhmedov is not. He's not quite on that level. But man, all it takes is one, because Weidman was winning many of his fights, and then just all it took
got
was
touched.
One. Yeah. So Akhmedov is may not be the guy to expose him here, but do you really want to bet on Weidman, a guy who is lost, 4 out of his last 6, something like that? It's scary, man. This is a classic. Avoid this fight at all costs. Maybe save this for live betting, because you never know. Weidman comes out and he's smothering Akhmedov to a decision. Great, maybe he's still at bettable odds after round 1. But again, the risk is, what if he gets touched in round 2? What if he gets touched in round 3? So you got to be careful here. You may think about betting Weidman money line, so betting him straight up, maybe 2 units, 1 unit, and then something like that, and then hedging with Omari Akhmedov by KO. Because Omari Akhmedov by KO is probably going to be like plus 400, something in that range. Let me see. Akhmedov inside the distance is plus 190. So yeah, if his KO line is plus 350, 400, I can see that being reasonable. But what if Omari wins a decision? Then you lose both bets. So you got to be careful here.
Right.
I don't see Omari winning a decision. I think if anybody's winning a decision, it's Weidman. But Who knows? You know, crazier things have happened. This is a small cage. There's a lot of things. You know. All right. Derek Lewis was a gigantic favorite. Like he was in the neighborhood of like minus 280, I think, at some point. But now he's down to minus 220, minus 205 on some sites. Olynyk is being bet. People are betting Olynyk. I don't know why, but people are betting Olynyk. Olynyk looked great in his last fight. He just decisioned Verdum. And then who did Derek Lewis fight last? Oh, Latifi. Did he end up fighting Latifi? Let me see.
Actually, he looked really good in that fight.
Did he fight Latifi? Oh, yeah, he did. Yeah, he had decisioned Latifi.
Yeah. In a fight
Latifi
where he looked a bit more disciplined.
So out of shape. I don't know what happened. Yeah, it was Latifi's.
Well, I think he came up in weight too. Yeah,
heavyweight debut. So yeah, I mean, you didn't get much from that fight. You didn't, because Latifi just showed up so out of shape.
Well, I will say though, I beg to differ, because I think that was the most calculated and that we saw Derek Brunson, instead of every punch being a lights out. We actually saw some of his boxing ability.
Okay, I don't remember too much. I just thought that when Latifi showed up on the scale, I was like, oh god.
Yeah, that's true too.
This is where you're just gonna jab this guy and move around, and that's kind of what he did. All right. So in this fight, betting for this fight, I would avoid this fight like just the same plague.
I see a path for Olynyk to actually win this.
Okay, how do you see him winning? Okay.
Grappling.
Ugh. Okay. Well, I mean,
if it goes down to the ground, man.
Yeah, if it goes down to the ground, Lewis is in trouble. But have you seen these memes of Derek Lewis on how he just stands up?
No.
You haven't seen these?
No.
Derek Lewis has made a tweet once that said, I can't like talk like the way he does, but
right.
He basically said, like, how does Jiu-Jitsu work? You just stand up. Like, that's literally what he said. And I'm not kidding. This dude,
he's
like,
great.
Like, he literally does that. Go if you're at home right now, go on YouTube and search Derek Lewis stands up. And there are videos of Derek Lewis just literally, the commentators are thinking in their head, like, well, Derek Lewis just wants to stand up, and he just stood up. And they're like, what happened here? So anyway, Derek Lewis is really good at standing up, as far as like not doing anything technical and just standing straight up.
That's
and
awesome.
It works.
That's awesome.
So what I think is going to happen is, I think this fight's going to be pretty close to the Walt Harris fight with Olynyk. Olynyk's going to get caught with something, and he's going to get KO'd. I like Olynyk a lot, but you know, the types of people he's catching with these, like, you know, these Ezekiels and arm bars and chokes he's getting, they're not Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is a lot more athletic than I think people give him credit for. So, yeah, that's it. That wraps up last weekend and this weekend. I'm not going to recap all my bets, so you got to rewind this shit if you're. There's too many.
Well, so very good. But walking away, if there's one thing that you take away from this particular episode is, if you're live betting and a round is scored 10-8, you think a round is scored 10-8?
First round 10-8, always bet the draw, because if the other guy comes back,
it happens.
I mean, it's just the risk reward is huge. It's like, you know, you're
drop a 20, right?
$30 will return you like, you know,
thousands.
$1,000.
Yeah.
Thousands. So you got to bet that, you know. So
and
if anyone couldn't do it, I was too slow.
And if anyone needs to see what that looks like, you know, get your UFC Fight Pass and look up BJ Penn versus John Fitch. Perfect example. BJ Penn won the first 2 rounds.
Oh, good idea.
Gassed out. Final round, he was so gassed out, he lost by 2 points.
Yeah. So he won 10-8 in the first round?
No. BJ Penn won the first round, second round handedly, and then lost the third round to John Fitch.
Oh, so that's another way that it can happen.
Yeah.
But the problem there is that you won't have an opportunity.
Yeah, true. But just the whole idea, I think that's a great strategy.
Yeah, let's say, you know, in the future, we probably will have an opportunity to live bet a draw, even as the score is being announced, you know.
Oh, that's crazy.
I mean, in the future, because the only reason why that's not offered now is because nobody really knows the real odds, and they don't want people to, you know, just get the jump on them, I guess. So that's why it needs to be controlled, and so in the future, you know, we talk about this on the podcast. Like you can bet, like who gets the first down. What coin the coin, what direction it lands. Did it land? Who picked up the coin?
You can get creative on
crazy
proposition
on
picks.
So imagine what can happen in grappling, right? You can actually bet, Gordon Ryan's sponsors. Will he have sponsors on his rash guard? These are all things that I think are great for grappling. It's going to drive the economy of grappling up. We're talking to Submission Underground. We're talking to Fight to Win. We're working with them, and I think these are all good. What else we got to do, right? We can't train, so this is right. we gotta advance the sport. So, all right, Jim, that's it for Jiu-Jitsu Mag Betting Podcast.
We're working on it. We're working on it. If you have any ideas, hit up Coach
below.
Ben. Yeah, comment below. Hit up Coach Ben on his Instagram @CoachBZ.
I don't say this like ever, but please like the video and comment and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. There you go.
I don't ever say this.
There
for
you
some
go.
reason.
We did today. We did today. Well, Coach, thanks for your insight. Thanks for the breakdown and the recap. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. So, anything else?
Nope.
We're good. All right. Thanks, Coach. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Peace.